But welcome everyone. My name is Jessica Reino. I am a clinical social worker and I am the associate clinical director at Mightier. If you're a Mightier family or you've been to one of these webinars before, we may have run into each other. Today's workshop is really about attention and focus, doing a lot of exploratory. I'm going to introduce some exploratory activities you can do with your child at home, but we are going to do a little bit of an educational intro as well, just to lead into this. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to talk about like some driving forces of attention, what pulls our attention in different directions and why and what's behind that. We're going to talk about attentional control, so that executive functioning skill that really is about shifting your attention, holding your attention, being very intentional about your attention. And then for kids who have difficulty with that, a lot of times for kids with ADHD, what does that mean in terms of academics and in terms of emotional regulation as well? We're going to talk about self-image, just really how we talk to kids about this can really impact their developing self-image in a number of different ways. And then we'll get into our activities. I'll talk you through how they work, what skill they're trying to build, and how you can use the activity with your child. If you are so there are a few things here. If you are a Mightier family, again, if you've been to one of these before, you might recognize that we try to do a lot of things from a very like strengths-based growth mindset perspective. We never want to imply that there is a right or wrong way to do anything, right? There's no right or wrong way to experience your emotions, feel what you feel. So we approach a lot of our content and our activities from a very exploratory standpoint. We want to give kids the space to figure out how these things work for them, and especially when it comes to like emotional regulation stuff, which is what most of Mightier is built around, figure out like, okay, what gets my heart rate up? How do I bring my heart rate back down? And practicing that through play, through like these experiential learning environments. We're bringing those same concepts into like our skill pack work, and trying to get you to do that same type of exploration for whatever the concept is or whatever the theme is. So for this one, the games are around attention and getting you to explore attention through the mechanics of the game. You also might recognize we work in metaphors a lot of times. So the metaphor for this skill pack is we're using music. It's really the idea of like tuning in and tuning out and like being part of a band and holding on to your part, paying attention to your part, maintaining your part while there are other people also doing theirs, right? And how do you balance that? How do you kind of like, what is that experience like, really? And so this little avatar that you see on the screen here is wearing the costume that your child can unlock in the Mightier app through the code on the skill pack. So I'm going to send this skill pack out to you all after the presentation. All right, so let's start by talking about like what drives and holds our attention. And I want you to like think about this for yourself. At like, give yourself whatever task, paying a bill, thinking back to doing homework or writing a paper. What was it like to try to stay focused, hold your attention on that task versus where would you get pulled? Where would you naturally just get pulled? What would happen in your brain and what sorts of things would pull you away? This is applicable for all of us, right? We all are going to get distracted by things. Our brains are going to gravitate toward other things, but especially for kids with ADHD, and you've probably heard like the phrase like an interest-based nervous system, which like can sound negative, but really it's just very descriptive that like the ADHD brain can be really craving that thing that feels like exciting, highly stimulating, feels rewarding or like is new or novel, right? Like their brain just gets pulled there, right? Which means that the boring thing, the hard thing, the less engaging thing is really, really hard to stay focused on and like hold your attention on. And that's not about choices. It's just about like how that brain, like the brain is working, right? The way that we see this play out for kids most often is in academic settings, right? Like the school assignment that they know all the information, right? Like they could ace that, no problem, but it doesn't feel engaging. It doesn't feel exciting. And so therefore it's really, really hard for them to just sit down and complete it. And then what we see oftentimes is that their performance does not reflect their capabilities, right? Like it's just a reflection of attention in a lot of ways, right? Because like getting that assignment done, which doesn't feel rewarding in a way, it's just really hard for good reason, just based on how the brain works. Now let's talk a little bit about attentional control. So, and again, this is an executive functioning skill that a lot of kids with ADHD struggle with. And again, that can impact academics, it can impact emotional regulation. Attentional control is really that ability to like filter out and ignore irrelevant information, hold your attention on something, even when there's like something else, a more interesting or more exciting, like going on outside of that, or shift your attention away from like the exciting thing or like even the emotionally provocative thing. So this is really relevant for emotional regulation. And we'll go through a few examples. So one might be that schoolwork example. I already know this information and therefore I can't pay attention to it to complete the assignment. It's just not, it's not holding me. It's very hard for me to stay focused on it. Or there's a lot of noise in the classroom. I hear all of it. I can't filter. I can't like block any of that out. And therefore it's really hard for me to stay focused on the thing I'm supposed to be doing. Or someone said something really insulting to me and I can't stop thinking about it, right? Like that, there's an emotional charge there that you're like drawn toward, and it's really hard to shift your attention away from that. If that is something your child experiences, like you might see how that plays out with their ability to then like calm back down after something like that has happened. It's really hard because their attention is very stuck on that thing. Or I'm at a busy amusement park, some other busy setting. You just like, you experience all of it. So you're absorbing all of it, sensory overload, you feel drained. It's just like your body, your brain are just like so tasked by that experience because you can't block any of it out. Or like feeling really angry, insert any emotion there, excited, whatever. And you can't stop, like you're stuck in that emotion. You can't stop feeling that way. You would, I mean, if you're excited, you wouldn't want to, but like for anger, for anxiety, like you can get really stuck there, right? Now, so those are the two like concepts I want us to like keep in mind in going into these activities, because the goal is really for kids to like learn about themselves, understand how these things work for them, and therefore like what can they take away in order to like meet their goals. But one piece I just want to insert is that a lot of times, and especially for kids with ADHD, like that's not how they're approached. They are often, like we just talked about some things that are like how the brain is wired, right? Like how your body works. And oftentimes kids are approached as if when they can't do something or something is hard for them, like it's a choice they're making, which is not the case, right? Like kids aren't choosing not to pay attention, right? It's that attention to that thing is very difficult. But a lot of times kids are approached with like judgment, accusations, comparisons, unrealistic expectations. You're not trying hard enough. You should be working harder. If you just worked a little harder, this isn't difficult for them. So why is this hard for you? And for kids, you know, like think about like your child's in elementary school, middle school, high school, for kids who are like, their self-image is always developing, but they're in settings where the social aspect increasingly matters and is increasingly influencing how they see themselves. So how their teachers talk to them matters, how their peers talk to them matters, how they see themselves in comparison to others, it starts to matter, right? So when they're approached from this standpoint of like, they're not being understood, they're being like almost like accused and judged, that can be really damaging to their developing self-image, and that they start to internalize like, I'm doing something wrong. I should be able to handle this differently than I can. And therefore that means something's wrong with me, which is not the case, right? But we see a lot of kids developing that sort of self-image when they're approached in that way. The alternative option is this framework of like, no, this is just how your brain is built. This is how your body works. Like, this is not a choice. And like, let's just learn about what works for you. Like, let's approach people with curiosity, with empathy, with openness, with acceptance. How was this experience for you? How can I help you in the future? Like, what could we do differently to better support you? That sort of approach that just like validates and normalizes and doesn't like place judgment on a child. So those are just, I always want to throw that in, especially with these different topics for Mightier kids. Okay, let's jump to our first activity. So this is really about exploring those differences in distraction, focus. The goal of this is just to learn about yourself, for your child to learn about themselves, and for you to like learn about each other, maybe open some doors for conversation. The way you will do this is we have like a few places outlined, a few things outlined, and then a few styles. And what you would do is, so if your child was going first, they would pick a place, a thing, and a style that is most distracting for them. Or you can start with focus or engaging, and like which of these helps you like focus the best. You will get for them, I think that when you are in the kitchen and you have a snack and you're all by yourself, like that's when you either focus best or are most distracted, or whatever. And then flip it, that you will pick for yourself and they will guess for you. So again, this is just like opening pathways for conversation. I was speaking with a Mightier parent last week, and she was saying she did this with her son, and she was just totally surprised by some of his choices. It's not what she expected. And it really opened her eyes to like, oh, interesting. I thought this type of setting like was most beneficial for you. It turns out like it's not. I think music can always be an interesting one here, where like I know for myself, if I am trying to complete some work and there's any music on in the background or any background noise, other people anywhere, like totally distracted. And that's very different than someone else who like maybe needs that background noise, needs that music to help them focus, right? So just kind of like learning about yourself, learning these little tricks that hopefully then you can apply in real life to help you meet your goals. This next game, mostly this is a little goofy. It is this idea, we're bringing in the music metaphor, this idea of a band. What you would do is you'd cut out these cards, and each card has, you put them in a pile, and each card had like a prompt. Sing cha-cha-cha, clap your hands, stomp your feet, hum a tune. You would ideally play this with more than 2 people if possible, because how you want this to go is that like every person pulls their card and then starts playing their part. And they have to hold that part and keep playing that part while the next person flips their card and then starts playing a different part. And then the next person goes. And it's just sort of highlights like, oh, how do I pay attention to the thing I'm supposed to be doing when now you're making all this noise and you're moving around next to me? And just what is that experience like? And hopefully it's also just fun and a playful way to sort of like get at this concept a little bit. It's also a challenge in a way, like try to hold your part despite the other stuff going on around you. And that might be easier for some and harder for others. And then our last little activity is a kid-friendly version, I guess, of the Pomodoro method, if anyone's heard of that, which is just like a time management, like focus technique, where you basically like time box yourself and you like say like, I have my task, whatever that is. I'm going to focus for 25 minutes. Like you set an alarm. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, focus for 25 minutes, take a break. You kind of go back and forth like that. It's built for adults. So with kids, we want to decrease those time frames, 15 on, 15, 5 off, 15 back on. Give kids some agency and ownership over this experience. Like, okay, like what is your what's the task, but what's your break activity? What do you want to do during that break? What's your reward at the end? What do you want to do to sort of like celebrate that you finished this task? And then a playlist, excuse me, a playlist title. What's a goofy title you would give this? All right, and this is just a quick, excuse me, a quick overview of the skill pack that I'm going to send out. Oh, excuse me. So we went through these activities. Oh, my apologies. Very dry talking for that long. We went through these activities that are on the right here. The other pieces here are a leveling story. So Sparky's our leveling here. Meet Sparky. Sparky, you know, we'll like give Sparky a little bio. Some fun facts that are like wrapped into music, and the educational introduction that like uses the metaphor to convey the concept that we're trying to get kids to like engage with. So you don't have to worry about like how to introduce this to your child. Like you can just read this together and kind of like go about, oh, we're learning this together. Let's do this together. So we'll handle that piece. And then the other thing here is that code that like lets your child unlock their outfit in the Mightier app. That's here as well. And that is it. So there's a quick, short little overview of this topic and activities. If you have any questions, comments, or requests for future workshops, feel free to email me directly. I'm very happy to like take specific requests into accommodation, like as we do these on an ongoing basis. All right, and that's it. Thank you so much.